Good morning, Brenden Rendo here with NextHome Neighborhood Realty. And I'll be joined shortly here by Joseph Dionne. And today on the Orlando Real Estate Buzz, we're going to be going through the home builder numbers. The National Association of Home Builders just came out within the past several days, and are actually calling for a housing recession. And we're going to be looking at some of those numbers and what they mean. And here's our friend Joe. Hold on. Hello, how are you?
Here. How are you doing today, Brenden? Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you fine.
Awesome. You're live, and I am late, and I am having a blast. I dropped off my daughter from school today. Like, everything changes. School is back in session.
Oh, I know. And we were talking about that. It's like, ooh, we got to put this here and do this here now. So, well, I'm glad you get to drop your daughter off. That's always fun. It's a nice time. Nice to have a few minutes alone, with one of the kids. Yeah.
Oh, I always laugh though, because it's like, hey, how's school going? Good. What's your favorite class? I don't know. What are you in class right now? I don't know. I'm like, all right, great. I'm so glad I had this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks. My boys are exactly the same. I try and take them to the stores with me, just to have some alone time. It's like, is there anything you want to do? No. Anything I can get for you? No.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Can I go back and play my game? I'm like, no. No.
You can do that anytime.
Yeah, it's like, look, sun is out. It's beautiful. We live in Florida.
Let's enjoy it a little bit, just a hair.
Just a hair. Anyways, I was just going through what we're going through this morning, which is we're going to be looking at some of the National Association of Home Builder numbers, because they just released that they are looking at a housing recession for builders. So what I did is this is a recent article from Wolf, and basically what the home builders are saying is the builder confidence has dropped precipitously. And it's for 8 consecutive months now, it has continued to drop. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing it drop to a level of 49. It's registered at 49, which we haven't seen that level since 2014. Which that was when we were really starting to come out of the recession, of the big recession. Mm-hmm. So a lot of their confidence is going. But what I found interesting is when we look at the numbers, what they're seeing is kind of backing up what we're seeing here in the Orlando area, as far as traffic, as far as discounting, as far as buyer volume as well. So when we get into these numbers a little bit, this is what they've seen. So they were very high. I mean, back in December, January, of course, rates were still great, and they were flying high. What were they doing to realtors back then? I'm sure you heard every complaint in the world.
Boxed out. No realtor was welcome or even invited. It's like, oh, you have a buyer? I don't need you.
Yeah. I think Lennar was down to paying like $1,500 for a transaction. And it's like, come on, guys. That's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And here again, see the dip. But this is the interesting one, is look at how quickly traffic has dropped off for builders. Wow. This is the number of people going by and stopping into their sales offices. I mean, you're basically, you're back down to 2014 levels as far as traffic for builders right now. Mm-hmm. And you see, the only other dip was beginning of 2020, which was the beginning of the recession. Mm-hmm. But that minute we got that stimulus money, though, boom.
Did the stimulus money even come back? I think it was the moment. Well, maybe it was when the stimulus money came in. It was real quick, but everybody had money, right?
All of a sudden, everybody had money.
So I think there's like a direct correlation here, right? Like, and some of this is like what's gone up the last couple of months, right? Everything's like we've seen inventory going up, we see rates going up, like we see like these things, like the builder, you know, a lot of people were going into these new builds because they just had no other option, right? Even if they needed to be in something ASAP, they were like, I got to get a contract, I'm going to go with a builder and I'll figure out where I'm going to rent next. Like, I'll figure that out. I mean, I had a number of clients that were like, well, we're going to stay at an extended stay hotel. And I'm like, for 8 months? And they were like, well, it's the best option we have.
Oh, that would drive me nuts.
I wouldn't do it. But I've had clients that made those decisions because buying the home, going with the builder was it. And that was the only way they can find. And they felt like, oh, well, I can't find what I want. I can't find inventory. I don't have this. But at least with a builder, I get what I want. And I might have to wait for it. So that's changed now.
Oh, it is definitely changed. And I can tell you from the emails. And then this is the interesting one. For the first time in several years, the median price, according to the Census Bureau, for a new home sale actually dropped. We went from roughly about $460 down to $420.
That's a big drop too. That's over 10.
That's a big
almost
drop.
A 10% drop.
So that tells you that a lot of these builders are just getting nervous. They're sitting on this inventory and they're starting to throw out incentives. And what's one of the reason? This is the cancellation percentage. And look where it really starts to peak. It was pretty steady. You saw about, in average, maybe around 7.5%, percent, for the past couple of years. May, interest rates start to spike, jump to 10%. June and July saw nearly an 18% cancellation rate for builders' homes. Yeah, that's huge.
And the crazy part is like a lot of times that when you're on a new build, your earnest money, your escrow deposit these aren't like $1,000 or $2,000 deposits. These are usually $8,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 deposits just to get the build started. So people are canceling. They're saying, I got to walk away from that, which means because I think it's a qualification piece. They're just not able to qualify anymore because rates went up.
Well, when you look at it, like you were saying, people were waiting. It's about an 8-month time for a build right now. So if you were back in November, December, and you were looking at a new build, you've signed your contract, you're calculating in your head
3% interest.
I'm at 3% interest rate. Now, what happens is they don't lock. Your rate doesn't get locked. And the builders' mortgage companies are notorious for this. They wait to the very last second to do a lock. So what happens now? You're a week before closing. All of a sudden, the builder's mortgage company calls and says, okay, we're going to lock your rate. You're now at 5.5%.
And you cry as that payment just went up almost $1,000.
And you're like, I can't do that. I've got to eat. I got to pay gas. You've got all these other things going up, and people are just, people are literally in panic because, and I quite honestly believe also, is it knocked a lot of people out qualification wise. If you've seen your payment jump $1,000, and most people, are in that 40-50% DTI range, all of a sudden, they're just, they're not qualified anymore. Oh, you're dragging a little bit there. Can you hear me, Joe? Oh, wait. We'll be back here in a second. So now what we're seeing is the home builders are really starting to push out the incentives.
Starting to get a little bit of a fizzle back.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's all right. But what we're seeing now, Joe, and I get them every day. Whoops, we lost Joe. Um, but what happens is we're getting incentives every single day from builders, and those incentives are both to you and to us. So what we're seeing is I'm getting inventory home incentives, 4% commission. Oh, here he is. You there?
I am here. I am here. I'm not sure what's going down there. We're like
Usually your reception's pretty good there. You know?
So we caught a little bit of a snafu.
That's okay.
But I mean, I caught most of what you said, but I think one thing you were talking about was you mentioned the rates not being locked and not being able to qualify after the part, and so with buyers and builders, a confidence piece that I just really want to hit on is I think a lot of buyers have seen what's happening to other buyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're hesitant because they're like, whoa, rates went up and jack, people are canceling because they can't afford. They're hearing these horror stories. But I think also like real estate agents are probably educating their buyers a little bit more about this. Of like, hey, like here's what would happen if we go new build or what if we do this. And I think I've seen in
I always recommend to my clients that they speak. Well, that they speak to an outside mortgage lender, much like yourself, because one, you're not pushing, the builder, as much as they are, and you got alternatives. I think you had mentioned to me last week that you were able to save a new construction build that one of the builders lenders kind of screwed up on.
Yeah, it was a tough. It literally was this example though. They were under contract, they were there, and they thought they were great, but they weren't locked in. And then they finally get to the point where it's like, hey, we're ready to close. And it's like, and you know how builders always are. It's like, hey, construction's going to be complete in 2 weeks. We need to be ready to close. And then the lender all of a sudden is like, hey, we need all of this stuff. And their rate was like, they're thinking they're going to be a 3.5, and they ended up being like a 6.5 because they didn't have the greatest credit. So we actually got in and were able to look at the borrower's credit, get them a little bit more time. And here's the cool part is because the market slowed down, this builder was willing to work with them. A lot of builders would be like, oh, you don't qualify, too bad, so sad. 6 months ago, they were canceling it, taking your EMD and saying, I got buyers waiting like anybody. But now they didn't have that. So they worked with our client, and we actually sat down, looked at their client, and we're like, hey, we can do a rapid rescore. We just need you to take care of these two items. We're going to take you from a 650 to a 730. So we knocked out a rapid rescore, got them a much better rate, and we ended up getting them approved at a 5. I think we closed them at, actually no, we were at a 5.125 is where we closed them at. But the builder was saying 6.5 with their credit score originally.
Yeah,
and
they don't have, the builders lenders don't have that incentive, customer service wise, that I see you and other lenders have. You know, they're just it's a factory, and if it doesn't fit, if you got a round peg and you got or a round hole and a square peg, they're not going to work to try and make it work. They don't have the creativity and they don't have the options, and that's why I always recommend, hey, talk to an outside lender. And I was just going over that the incentives that they're throwing forward at us right now. I mean, I get them on my text message every day. I get them in my emails every day. Is for a buyer, it's not a bad time to look at a new construction home, because I mean, a lot of places I'm getting offered 4% commission, which I can utilize part of that to help do a buy down for our clients. I'm willing to give up part of my commission to help people get in. So they may be looking and saying, okay, this is 450, and at the 5.5%, it's just outside my reach. Well, let me give you 1% of my commission towards your closing costs, and let's buy down that rate. So it's, and the builders are being a little more flexible on what they're willing to do. A lot, like you said, a lot of them are offering the 2-1 buy downs.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'd rather buy it down for the life of the loan if you can. And you've got, and the other thing is, is you've got the
if you can, and that's the big.
Go ahead. And with
with 2-1 buy downs, I think it.
With the inventory,
I think we're pinging back and forth. I think my system's going a little wild today, so I'm no good. I'm going to be quiet for the rest of this because apparently I am no good on my side.
You're coming in and out. So not my choice of music though, So but the incentives, especially on inventory homes, are huge right now. Absolutely huge. And we can really go in and negotiate and really do a good job for our clients to get them, one, the best rates, and two, the best price. So you look at that and you see a lot of things, because the new construction kind of parallels the resale market, and you're seeing a lot of similarities. And the biggest ones is really the pullback in the buyers, and a little bit in the pullback in the prices. I mean, when we go through this week's numbers, probably the biggest thing that stands up, there's two things that really stood out to me this week, John. Two things. Number one is number of sales, 471. So we're seeing that number that we said we wanted to watch for a couple weeks in a row. We're seeing that number stay consistent. Sales are down. I went back and looked at 2020 and 2021. Sales are down 25% over the past 2 years. That's a big dip in home sales. Then the other thing is we're seeing that median price continue to drop a little bit. We're sitting at the 416. It's not a whole heck of a lot, but it's continuing to drop. And when we hop into our slides, we're back to seeing that flexibility from the sellers in the value, in the pricing. Original to final list price, we're still seeing that. We're seeing that discounts. Okay. And the final list to sales price, we're seeing some huge discounts, and we're back down to 98 and 96%. So we're staying consistent that we've got room in these sales, in the negotiations that we haven't seen in a long time. And again, this is the big one. Right down here, our weekly sales numbers. And you see back here, we had kind of been consistent. And then in June, boy, we just all of a sudden dropped off. People lost interest. That's, I think, when we really started seeing the inflation numbers really hit really hard. And we're back down consistently in that mid 4 range for sales. And we're coming into really the end of our peak sales season. Once they go back to school, you get the parents up in the morning driving their kid to school. That's their mind doesn't go to your mind's not on buying.
I'm an example. No, it's on figuring out the work schedule now, right?
Yep, figuring out the work schedule, figuring out all the school activities, and quite honestly, starting to get ready for the holidays. That's what people are thinking about. They're not just the number of people looking at homes has gone down. I've got 2 friends who both have listings in the land in Victoria's Landing, which is a beautiful subdivision, absolutely gorgeous subdivision. 2 brand new listings, both of them for 2.5 weeks, not one showing.
Wow.
Not one showing. Price-wise, I think they've got them both priced very well. but no traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And the open house, one did an open house, and he had 3 people through, which is something we, my gosh, last year this time, you go to an open house, you get there a half hour early, and you had a line of 20, 30 people lined up to see a house.
Mm-hmm.
You were just shaking your head like, oh, here we go again.
Yep.
Bring the offer and bring in the offer and the pre-qual with you. Boom, here.
Yep, exactly.
So then the other big number I was looking at, and this is something we had discussed, and I said, we got to watch for average days on market when that starts peaking. And that's what we saw. We actually took a big jump, 4 days. We jumped 4 days of average days on market. We've gone from 24 to 28. That's a big leap overall. So the houses are sitting longer.
Yeah, you're talking almost a 20% jump.
Yep. So we're just it's a cooling. And the new home construction seeing a cooling. Resales are seeing a cooling, but it's something that's natural. It's something that quite honestly needed to happen. We're not Orlando compared to other markets. We're not seeing the decline that in pricing that's already hit several markets. We just seem to be a good pocket where we're more isolated than a lot of the other areas. And then our inventory creeped up a little bit this week, but this is interesting because we're starting to see a peak level in inventory. We're starting to flatten out that curve on inventory. So if we see this continue to kind of level off, and all of a sudden the buyer volume goes up, we could see a spike in prices again a little bit. I think, and I was having a discussion with Warren, is part of what's happening is I think was the initial shock of the price of the rate increases. Is all of a sudden, it was just like, man, there's no way I can afford it now. No way I can afford it now. I think people have gotten the time to sit back, absorb it, rework their numbers, and say, okay, I can still do this. It's not what I wanted 6 months ago, but yeah, you know what? I can still do this, and it's still better than renting. I was speaking with Josh, about an associate of his who's budgeting $3,600 for a rental. And I'm like, Josh, why is he looking at a rental? $3,600. You look at that, that's, what, over $40,000 a year towards rent, and you get nothing out of it. Let's look at some different, let's see if we can talk to him and look at some different options for him, because there's inventory out there now, and we probably can get him, at $3,000 into a really nice house. He only needs like a 1,600 square foot house. So we're probably going to be in that $450 range. And when you look at the numbers, Joe, top of your head, we're probably what, $2,700 payment, somewhere in that ballpark. Temporary off market. This kind of spiked, and it's staying, as well as the withdrawals are kind of staying high. And again, if we go back, it's from this jumps, both of them, when rates took an increase. So sellers are uneasy. They're not willing to wait to let a house process through. And then going into the condos and townhomes, villas, same thing, same exact thing. We're seeing the flexibility. We're seeing the numbers where people aren't paying list. There's negotiation room in there as well. So it's one of those that we're getting to a really consistent market overall. Hi, Joe.
Can we hear me? Am I here?
No,
Am I actually here?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I think when we went to the screen share, it ruined me. This is
that was
what I
weird.
get for trying to rush back to my office after dropping off my daughter. I ran out of time. It was like, I got to stop somewhere and do this, or I'm not going to be on. But now I'm realizing that Florida is really hot, and it's really hard to stand outside for 30 plus minutes and not sweat. So now I need to go get a change of shirts, I feel like. No, like some really good information, and I think you really hit on, like, the builder side is kind of seeing that adjustment. And I think the one thing that I've noticed is a lot of builders are waiting for inventory now. Like, they're building it inventory. Maybe waiting for is the wrong answer. A lot of it is inventory that, because of these cancellations, they now have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that process of that model is, okay, now we can get it, and we have this inventory coming up, so we're going to be fine with that. So I'm curious to see what that continues to look like, if it's a short term or if it kind of trends for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. Interesting is I haven't seen a pullback, slow down in starts per se.
Yeah.
Which tells me that they're still confident in the Orlando market overall. Mm-hmm. You're seeing stories, in the Orlando Business Journal that there's a new project, 400 homes coming up over here. The Space Coast has got like 1,000 home project coming up.
Yep.
So this developer bought this plot of land. So you're seeing that the numbers are still good as far as the starts.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives me a little bit of confidence. Going forward, that we're not going to see that dip that a lot of other areas are going to see. Mm-hmm. I just gut's not there right now. It's not there right now. So and
I think what we may end up seeing is the build projects that we do see continue to hit. They're not going to be pushing the envelope as much as they were before. Meaning they're not being like, they're going to be pushing 550, 600, 700, 800, 900, but they may be like, let's build some starter homes in that 350, 400, 450 range.
Boy, wouldn't that be smart? I mean, blow your mind. Build a house someone can afford.
But the margin's not as good on that. That's why they didn't want to do it. It was so cheap to build money. Might as well maximize it out. I don't blame them from a business perspective, but now it's that mix.
You want to sell a development in 30 minutes? Make it, keep it under 400.
Yep.
Simple, basic house, and man, you'd still have people lined up because they could qualify and they could afford it.
Yep, exactly.
So, all right, those are our numbers for the weeks. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you're watching on Facebook, please hit the thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. And we will see you all again next Thursday. Take care, sir. Go change your shirt.